Welcome back to the Word Series. The Word Series centers on real stories, real lives, and how AI is showing up every day in business and in lifescape. Each word may be familiar, often from childhood, but it takes on new meaning in a world shaped by AI hype, leadership pressure, and organizational change. Our word this week is a truly fun one: aquarium. Often I talk about lifescape, AI everywhere all at once, and I'm so excited to delve into this one with our special guest, Meghan Tidgewell. Meghan is the principal consultant for Tidgewell Results Experience, affectionately known as TReX. Meghan works in software design, development, and lifecycle quality assurance. She often describes herself as being able to speak developer and being able to translate business requirements that translate from the complicated to the front end business dialogue. And I'd say that's absolutely a special talent. So, Meghan, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks.
So, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to dive in because we have a word that people wouldn't normally associate with AI. So, before we dive in, I'll just give a little bit of context. So, you and I had the opportunity to meet directly for the first time in the last, I don't know, year or so. And when we sat down together, I happened to notice that you had a number of tattoos, which of course fascinated me. And I said, "So, Megan, tell me about your tattoos." So that's a great opening to set you up to how are the letters AI in aquarium? What comes to mind when we discuss that word?
And asking me, and I'm like, can we do this? My leg is round. I saw this thing at the aquarium that was round and full of fish. Like, what if we take my leg and we make it like an aquarium too? We just do fish from top to bottom. And he was in. And so that's how I ended up with essentially an aquarium on my leg.
I have to say it's very cool.
It's turned out pretty nice. I'm pretty excited about it. I do work on it here and there. But where this ties into AI for me is creativity. I had an idea, but the inability to execute. So I had to work with somebody who could execute on my idea and my concept and help me refine it, right? My big idea was aquarium. There's a
So
lot of fish out there. There's a lot of different plants. There's a lot of different ecosystems. There's a lot of different lifescapes and landscapes in the ocean. And so it was trying to figure out how those work together, which pieces to do, which order to do them in. Like, do you start at the top part of the leg? Do you start at the bottom part of the leg? And so by sitting down with a tattoo artist, we talked it through and we put together a plan and we've been slowly executing on the plan. And just like software, it's iterative, right? The plan that I had probably 3 years ago when we started has changed a little bit along the way,
right.
right?
Well,
As
and
I've changed.
you might see new fish, right? You
Yeah.
could see different aquaria. And how fitting is that in relationship to the iterations happening in the world of artificial intelligence, right? And how AI in and of itself has literally been around for decades, and yet in its current iterations and rapidly changing iterations, how dramatically it can affect our business world. And because you work on the technology side, can you walk us through some of the challenges or the opportunities? Oftentimes one becomes the other. What are you seeing in the landscape today in the work arena?
So I tend to be glass half full. So I do see most of it as opportunity, right?
Great. We can work friends.
The biggest problems always turn out to be the best things when you're done with them, right? The bigger the challenge, the bigger the reward at the end, right? When you're able to solve it. And the way that I see it is that AI in its current form, ChatGPT, is allowing people who maybe were previously creative but didn't have the ability to execute or, have the executive functioning to organize their ideas to bring a concept to reality. And
Right?
AI can do that for people and it makes everything a little bit more accessible to everyone, right? Putting
Yeah.
together a plan, right? A lot of people can't even put together a basic tactical plan to implement something, right?
And
They know they have a concept, they have an idea, and they just say, get it done.
right. Well, and oftentimes you've needed people or a team to go from that thought to a workable plan. Whereas AI in utilizing whether it's Claude or GPT or whatever iteration there gives you the opportunity to take that thought and get it potentially further on your own before you bring a broader group in. Right. And I mean, I can give you a firsthand example as you just described that. Bridge AI Advisory, we're working on a governance component and I'm working on the web page for it. And I literally in Claude over the course of the last couple of weeks ended up designing an HTML page that I could give to my web designer Now, mind you, I'm not actually deploying the site, but it gave me the opportunity because I'm a very visual person to put it literally it did it in HTML to be able to hand it over to my designer, and he literally was able to replicate it instead of the multiple times back and forth that would have been characteristically done in the past. I was proud of myself. I got it done.
I think that's awesome. Most people are visual and it does, you know, call it the old world. It's not even that old anymore, but you would have to explain your vision to somebody who kind of understood it. And it's that cartoon that everybody's seen, right? Somebody describes a yacht. The first
Right?
iteration is like a tugboat. And then the second iteration is a, tugboat with something else on the front. And it's that back and forth time that AI allows people to save because you can do your iteration with it and it iterates faster, helping you take that creativity to reality much quicker.
Oh, and I love that because it you've also like you've given another word. Creativity has the letters AI in it too, right? I'm very keyed into those words these days. So let's go there for just a second and talk about in another word to describe. I think what you're walking us through is co-thinking, right? That it's not necessarily replacing the human element. In my example, I didn't post the web page that I designed on my own. And frankly, I don't have that skill set or that technical degree behind the curtain. But it did give me the capabilities of iterating the front end of the process much faster. I know that you work on so many different projects because I often see your name on the projects that I come past my desk. So think about it in terms of what you're hearing people talk about, what you know and recognize are industry challenges. What are people considering under the utilization of AI?
Should go with analysis here. So another word that has AI in it, right? Like maybe that's what I'm about. Like how many words do you think I introduced during this session? Um, is analysis, right? In the old world, you have to take one or more people that have to sit down and they have to do a bunch of analysis before you start. And analysis isn't easy because you essentially have to throw, like, if you have existing material, you have to kind of separate all of it out before you can put it
Mhm.
back together. And not everybody is great at puzzles and all
Right?
types of puzzles. And that's essentially what analysis is, right? It's taking the puzzle, breaking the whole puzzle apart, finding the commonalities, and then figuring out how you can put that puzzle back together more efficiently than it was before. And that can take anywhere from 3 to 5 people, right? Because
Right?
somebody does part of the puzzle and then you hand it off to somebody else and it goes to somebody else and somebody comes along and looks at it and says, you guys did the puzzle totally wrong. So then you start over and there's
Right?
a lot of time that gets spent doing that. And I see that the generative AI models out there right now can help you do the puzzle sorting and do that analysis a lot quicker. So you get a return on your investment by doing that, by having more, is it less emotional, more robotic? Like, I don't know how to quite describe that. The way that it does the puzzle is different than a person looks at a puzzle, right?
Well, and I think that's an excellent point. It LLMs, the perception that we readily accept that it does sound like a person, but technically it's not. It's just utilizing tokens and data and putting those things together in a format that is user friendly, right? It makes me think too of in your experience. I know this was a bit ago, but we're having a conversation one day and you were just beginning to play within the LLMs. And part of what we've both learned in this process is more information isn't necessarily better, meaning we put everything in at once. While on the surface it feels like they love data, so we should just dump everything in there. What did you learn through that process and how have you changed it for how you do your day-to-day work?
So it sounds like, to put this in human context, gets overwhelmed, right? Just the way people get overwhelmed. If you just hammer somebody with information, you can only process so much so fast, right? At some
Right?
point, you've reached a point of it being overflowing. And AI has that too, right? Person reaches that limit a lot faster, but AI still has a capacity limit that it can take in at once and reasonably find the data and tokens that it needs to give you back good information, right? I found that I got more hallucinations and made up stuff the more information I gave it.
And did it have to do with the format in which the data was given that had an effect on that, or did you not find that? And mind you, keep in mind, I just for our audience purposes, this was probably, I don't know, if I think it was a year ago, it might have been 8 months ago, but the models have improved, since then as well. So that just as a sidebar.
I did not. I was able to overwhelm it almost no matter what I gave it. That's the
That's
quality assurance in me is like, hey, what can I do to break this?
why I'm good at what you do, right? Like, yeah.
Where's the boundary? Can I cross it?
Right. Well, it does make me laugh because I think it kind of comes full circle to the extent of we find the things that it does well for us in those iterations. Like I suspect if you were to tackle the same project today, because of the learning that you've brought in over the time frame from that first attempt to now, what would you do differently? What would you know to do differently today than you may have in that first project?
I am going to date myself right now with this analogy. But when I was first learning to use computers, they were the little Apple ones back in the 80s, and you had to keep taking the disk in and out, right? The command and you put the disk in, then you took the disk out, then you gave it a command and you put the disk in and you took the disk out, right? It
Yep.
was bite
Yep.
sized.
Ask me to remember those days, not for nothing, but go ahead.
And sometimes there were 2 disks, but it I approach the any iterating that I'm doing with a large language model now like that, right? Smaller pieces to make sure what I have is stable, save that off. Cool.
Mhm.
Good. Now let's do the next piece, right?
Yep.
And then at the end, you can stitch all of it together when you have a number of pieces. So I'm trying to be methodical about it instead of just giving it a ginormous prompt and a ton of data and expecting it to do a lot of things all at once. I try and divide those up into reasonable jobs, have it do the job, and then stitch everything together.
Yeah, I think that's great insight and pieces that will help all of us, whether it's we're doing things for fun or we're doing things for work. So as usual, our time's coming to an end, and I'd like to close these sessions in the context of Lifescape. Thank you so much for addressing the aquarium and sharing the fun story behind your tattoos. But let's close on something fun that you're seeing AI used in your everyday life.
There's so many things. I'm not an artist. I cannot draw to save my life, but I tend to have creative ideas. So I think many people have been on meetings with me and I have a little Muppet avatar. I'm a fan of the Muppets, but I didn't just go and put a picture in of myself and get a Muppet out, right? I told it I wanted to look like Red Fraggle and gave it a picture of Red Fraggle and I gave it a picture of me and it just gave me back a Muppet that was bright red. It wasn't good. So then, like, all right, let's try this again.
Just a little bit.
So, like, all right, maybe Red Fraggle's not right. Even with the reference of Red Fraggle, I couldn't figure out how to put it together. I'm like, well, let's go with general, like, oh, and you can't be a Muppet because of copyright issues. So puppet, let's be appropriate. It has to be puppet like.
Well,
Yeah.
it showed a guideline or a guide rail. That's
Yeah.
good.
I hit those all the time too. So, I asked it to make me a puppet wearing a shirt with a dinosaur on it.
Oh, right. We bring in the TReX, makes it personal. Good.
Where and this next iteration, it made me look like basically Bert from Sesame Street.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a dinosaur on the t-shirt, it was a lizard.
All right.
A little more specific. I want to be a female puppet and I want it to be a T-Rex, right? And so I iterated on my prompt and then I still got a Bert looking puppet with longer hair. The dinosaur was looking better. So I was like, I'm going to try this one more time. And I had it, funny enough, asking it to add eyelashes is what got me a feminine looking puppet face.
Interesting, right? Well, again, because and that likely has to do with how the model was trained and it keyed into eyelashes. Obviously we all have them, but it's interesting that at the time you were doing this, that was the thing that tipped it to closer.
Yeah,
So do you give it, I was gonna say, I'm trying to think if I've seen this little caricature. I don't think I have. Did it work? Have you ultimately brought it across the finish line?
yes, I did. I got my puppet like image of myself finished and I use it wherever possible until
That
I come up with something else that I want to be.
Well, you might have given me a little inspiration to try and find my own little avatar.
So since I've done that, Google actually has one. There is a puppet generator.
Oh, that's fun. Well, thank you, Megan. We're so grateful for your spending your time with us today. And thank you for the work you do on behalf of the industry as a whole. We really appreciate that you joined us. Thank you
Awesome.
for making it possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.